What's up, everyone? We are live at Hong Kong FinTech Week 2022. My name is Jason, and joining with me is my colleague David Leahy, Chief Operating Officer of HashKey Group's exchange business. Well, welcome to Hong Kong FinTech Week, David. How are you?
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, very good. Thank you.
So how's your experience at FinTech Week so far? Was there any booth that caught your attention in terms of its design and all that?
It's been, well, first of all, it's really, really well attended. Very good to see people and the footfall coming through in Hong Kong. Some fantastic booths, including our own.
Absolutely, yeah.
Definitely noticed a lot of activity on the Web3 area, which has been very, very interesting. And some of the initial discussions, SPF and others, have been fantastic so far this morning. So looking forward to the content for the rest of the week.
Yeah, for sure. And this is your, how many times have you been to FinTech Week before?
This is my first time at FinTech Week.
Oh, really? Oh,
yes.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, obviously FinTech Week has been a staple of Hong Kong's FinTech culture for years. This is, I think, the 7th edition. Now, this year is a little bit special because one of the huge motifs at FinTech Week this year is digital assets and blockchain, converging with finance and FinTech. Now, you've had decades of experience working in the traditional finance space, right? How do you see virtual assets and finance converging in the future in terms of its applications, in terms of how people might use it?
Okay, great question. I think every iteration that we're going through at the moment shows that the adoption is going to be a lot more widespread, a little more slowly than a lot of people had anticipated. But ultimately, when we are speaking to different financial intermediaries, regulated, when we're speaking to the digital asset trading desks of a number of, of a number of different investment banks, we can definitely see them positioning to adopt and trade and facilitate the use of virtual assets on a far wider basis than has happened previously. So again, nothing will happen overnight, but that gradual move towards adoption is incremental and it's very, very evident.
Now, over the past months and over the past year, we've seen lots of institutions foraying into digital assets, right? When you look at Fidelity, JP Morgan, State Street, etc., what do you think is the factor that's prompting these institutions to take the leap of faith into this very nascent market?
I think it's a good question because it's at a very interesting time. Historically, many of these institutions would have had a house view. And right now, the message coming out of them is not always as coherent as necessary. There may be an individual who leads a bank who may have one view, but ultimately these institutions will be client-led. And the main reason for that increase in adoption is that these banks and institutions see client demand, and they know if they cannot satisfy that demand directly themselves, those clients will go elsewhere. So very much a client-led phenomenon at the moment.
Now, a question we've been asking all of our guests today is, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of the most momentous moment in crypto and blockchain over the past 5 years? The first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay, the merge. Absolutely. I think not only because of the technical enhancements that came with the merge, but if people, it was a real event where people outside of the blockchain and virtual asset ecosystem were actually aware of something meaningful happening in the space. It had great publicity globally, and people are tuned in for the next step of that as well. So straight off the top of my head, it would be the merge.
And what's the most memorable event apart from the merge in terms of what left you a lasting impression?
Lasting impression would have been the last market turndown. It's breathtaking how quickly it can happen. But again, these types of moves in the market, they really are more of a self-correcting mechanism. They definitely identify practices that aren't suitable for the space. And it's been impressive to see how quickly the space has stabilized. And as you can see from around you today, there's a lot of momentum and activity that's going to propel us through the next cycle.
Now, my final question is, Hong Kong is the birthplace of many crypto organizations. For example, when you look at Crypto.com, FTX, they all started out in Hong Kong. They have their roots in Hong Kong. The areas of blockchain and Web3, in which areas do you see Hong Kong has the most potential in developing and fostering an ecosystem out of?
I think it's a great question. I think you have a lot of momentum in GameFi and traditional meets virtual asset type solutions. Again, each of those being completely separate. But my view with Hong Kong has always been that it is big enough and diverse enough to foster all aspects of the ecosystem. I don't necessarily think Hong Kong is going to be restricted to one component by itself, but it'll bring everybody on board. I think what'll be really interesting will be to see how TradFi and DeFi and virtual assets all pull together over the next couple of years in the city.
I think what's interesting, because this morning, Christopher Ho, the secretary of the FSTB here in Hong Kong, consolidated the 3 pilot projects that Hong Kong is working on, which is NFT, green bond tokenization, and EHKD. What are your thoughts on these 3 areas in terms of how these may foster financial innovation in Hong Kong?
I think they are a great first step. I think you can create the product. Obviously, it'll be the adoption of the product. But the fact that you have people so as senior as himself speaking about these products, talking about them positively, and encouraging their more widespread adoption, I think that's a great sign. And you do not see that in many jurisdictions globally at the moment. It's very clear, coherent next steps on where the space can develop.
Awesome. Well, David, it's a pleasure to chat to you. Well,
Thanks,
thank you
Jason,
again. We
as
hope you
always.
enjoy FinTech Week today.
Okay, take care.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.